So here we are, day 2, Washington Toy and Geek Fest. Hi guys, thanks for coming to visit. We are the Comic Dads. I'm Andrew.
Egypt over here.
Egypt in the middle. We don't have a beer like we normally do when we do a podcast, so it's gonna be a little rough. But
we have a beer garden though. There is a beer garden.
in lieu of a beer, we've got 2 great guests. So we've got Keith Tucker, artist extraordinaire.
Hi.
Hi. You may know Keith. What's your big known for? Where would the fans know you from? I mean, we know who you are. We love you, but where would they know you from?
2 mice, you know.
They try to take over the world or something, right?
Yeah, this guy named Brain and there's his buddy Pinky.
I think we've heard of them once or twice, maybe.
Are you sure?
And then we got Emilio over here.
Hello, how's it going? Red City Comic Con, RedCon.
And
The Comic D-Pad Retro Gaming, the Comic Dads
support staff.
3-player co-op.
He's 3-player co-op. He's player 3. You know when you get that sign-in and you get those 2 good characters, you're like, man, that guy's really good at action, this one's good at sneaking, and then
there's
like,
Harry
there's no characters to choose anymore.
So yeah, but just here, enjoying day 2 of Toy and Geek Fest. Keith, what do you think of day 2?
It's like day 2.
It's like day 2. So what has been your favorite part of the show thus far? I mean, you're a local Washingtonian, right?
No, Oregonian.
You're an Oregonian.
Yeah. Portland.
Portland. Is someone in Portland?
Down the road.
Yeah.
So you're all about those IPAs and Pinot Noirs.
Yeah.
All day long. You might be mixed too, right?
Tea martinis.
Right. I do have a bunch of questions. So last time we met, it was right after Emerald City Comic Con. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I noticed I skipped over some questions that I was baffled to even ask you at this time. Where do you get these ideas from? Where do you? Whoa.
Hold on. Hey, sorry. I got our questions monitored.
Right. I have so many questions about Pinky the Brain. I know Emilio probably does too. Where do you get these ideas for these episodes? Like, Pinky the Brain.
Do the writers feed you, or do you feed the writers?
Yeah, where does this go?
It starts with the writers. But, you know, we twist their words and turn them into whatever. It's they're words on paper. They're open to interpretation, visually speaking, or cinematically speaking, visually.
So all the back and forth was purely writers, or did you guys have some influence? Like as you guys would start to draw the characters over more and more episodes, how much segue did you have in framing kind of what they would say, or if you guys came up with a good joke in the artist room, did the writers actually take it, or like, screw you, we get paid for the writing, you just draw, pretty boy?
I'll take the 50. Sometimes we had more leeway, sometimes we didn't. And we would work from an audio track, so Ron Paulson and Maurice LaMarche would be giving us all kinds of ways to do things, and I don't know, what do we do next? And then, but that involves a certain degree of acting because of how they draw out their dialogue, and we would have to act to fit the dialogue that they've given us. So yeah, there's room for a lot of leeway, but the writers gave us some great material to work with.
So we got a question from our 206 Geek Todd out there watching us. Where did Narf come from?
I would like to know.
You don't know either? That was all writers?
Yeah.
Showed up one day and stuck with the show?
You have to consult the Narf.
The Narfologists?
Yeah, the crystal ball that
the
says, yes, maybe so, try again later. That's where you would get your answer.
The old magic 8 ball is good for everything.
You know it.
Yeah, it's helped make some of my life decisions.
I think Brain might have even used one to try and take over the world.
It's possible.
Makes sense. I mean, I've watched all those episodes. I think I remember that one. One of
Or
my
Snowball gave it to him to mystify him. Sorry.
One of my biggest questions for you is, what is your favorite episode?
It's like picking your favorite kid, man.
Hey, there's always one that sticks out there. There's always one that, and trust me, I know which one's my favorite. Okay, I don't need to say it on camera. So,
I don't know.
What was the most fun you had? One episode, you only got one choice. Go.
Well, I mean, you know, they got shrunk down in like Fantastic Voyage, and they escaped from through Tom Baudette's nose, and you know, I mean, that's something that just doesn't happen every day. Maybe at Motel 6, but
I mean, with like the one great thing with Pinky and the Brain, I thought
only one
was all the references. Like all the references to creative pop culture of then and yesteryear. I mean, I think so, Brain, but where are we going to find rubber pants our size? Like all those snappy returns that Pinky would have. Like
the writers.
That's all writers.
Yeah, because they wrote the dialogue, which got recorded. Which, when we get it, the dialogue has already been recorded.
So
now,
are you listening to it while you're drawing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back and forth. I mean, an animation studio with the storyboard department is interesting because you'll hear this over and over. And
just to draw, 10 panels, right?
Yeah, and I remember working on the main title of G.I. Joe, and I'm listening, G.I. Joe is there, and then go back, and he'll fight for Britain. Okay, he'll fight for, okay, okay, I think I got it. Now I can move on.
Did you help with the G.I. Joe movie intro?
No.
No. So just
No, I didn't work on the movie.
Okay, the animated movie.
Yeah, I didn't work on the animated movie or the
live action. So was it early Joe or later Joe or kind of a whole run?
The second season I had a lot to do with. I was on staff. I worked on a lot of different shows, and I did the storyboards for the second season's main title. And 3 of us were on the crew were asked to come up with ideas for a main title, and they went with the one I came up with. And I was left to my own devices, just like come up with something. And I was like, yeah, okay.
Can you tell us one storyboard that you made that everybody's familiar with? Like Orion, Serpentor, which one?
Arise, Serpentor, Arise is one of them right there.
That's awesome.
Me and Emilio, huge G.I. Joe fans. I mean,
Iceberg Goes South, Leatherneck something.
Yeah.
Nice. So are you G.I. Joe fans out there? Yeah, I mean, you gotta check out.
Do you have a particular G.I. Joe character that was your favorite? I know for me it was real simple. My dad was a Coast Guardsman, so we had to have Cutter and the Whale, and he was the only Coast Guardsman, so he had to be our favorite.
Lady J was fun to draw.
Lady J? Lady with
it's funny.
spears and everything.
Cobra Commander.
You mentioned Lady J. I was speaking with Mark Malomo earlier, and he was telling me that there's so many times they would have to say, stop working on Lady J's breast. They're fine.
But why?
There's
Sometimes you gotta
there's a lot of detail.
You gotta work on a female form. It doesn't work any other way. I mean,
Respectful.
Scarlet, Lady J, Baroness.
Yeah.
I mean,
Baroness was fun to draw too, and Destro and Baroness together.
Destro with that kind of snake cowl. I mean, that was
Cobra Commander was like a blast, with the reflections in his
faceplate.
His faceplate, yeah. What he
Did you like the faceplate more or the cowl more for Cobra Commander for the years of drawing?
You just remind me. Yeah, I drew him with the cowl a lot too.
How did you feel about Serpentor?
He was fun, He'd fly around. Lady J gets to throw a net and get him down. Boom.
Get down, get down.
But yeah, I mean, for Joe's, I mean, although Conan, we had, I forget the villain's name, but he sure looked a lot like Serpentor.
Conan the Adventurer.
Yeah.
With the star medal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rathamon?
Rathamon sounds right.
Yeah.
I love that show. I remember that one.
But he sure looked a lot like Serpentor.
Well, the serpent's set. Yeah, I mean, with that kind of cobra cowl and hood over. I mean, I remember that show.
You seen one Cobra? You've seen them all.
Seen them all.
I know our room is completely booked right now, but I do have to recognize one of my buddies personally. He does comic pins. He's definitely in the nerd world. I feel like you have a question for our buddy Keith Ducker over here.
All right, so
Bring it.
during your creation process, so they give you the, they give you the script, they give you the vocal. What's your process to recognizing that and getting it to the final product? Like, what steps do you follow?
Well, it's a lot of basic filmmaking, and during this period, we were kind of urged to do it more like live action and not be locked in, like in Filmation when we worked on He-Man, we were tied to the stock system, and at Marvel, we could cut loose, and you have to have your story point that you want to get across. You want to do it as entertaining. You want to have glamour shots of your characters, is what we like to call them. You know, something that make them stand out.
Is it usually a bigger, like, for when you're doing that shot for the character, is it usually a bigger, like 8 by 11 or something, or is it just within the storyboard itself?
Oh, on G.I. Joe, we had like 6 panels on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and back then. And no, it's not big at all. That you're talking about layout.
Okay.
That's after storyboard. In the storyboard, you've got the script, you've got the track, you've got your character models. You have to act, tell the story, make the story clear, and not have a bunch of jump cuts so that people are not just watching the jumps rather than when you watch film, you just want to flow and one scene leads to the other. So you're setting up your shots before, your next shot before you even get to it. Like if there's a character and there's a door behind him, 9 times out of 10 or 11 times out of 10, somebody's walking through that door, tearing that wall down, something's going to happen. And if you see a door, you're leading to something.
Keith, I got a question. You've worked on a lot of childhood memories. I mean, X-Men anime series, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Pinky of the Brain. What was your favorite, like absolute, like it was so much fun, you just enjoyed it?
Wacko's Wish, the movie, the Animaniacs movie, that was a blast. I mean, we cut loose, we got to have a lot of fun, especially like during that avalanche sequence, and I had to wrap it up, and I had to find a way to end it in X amount of time, and I had this idea of the avalanche go down the hole, and even the director looked at me and he said, he was looking at the board and he said, "Where did you get that idea?" And I said, "I don't know, it just happened."
So I do actually, like, you're bringing back memories now. I'm just getting hit by a bunch of memories. I remember that specific scene, because the avalanche, it's almost like a drain, almost. Yeah. So when you're doing this, you have pretty much free reign to do everything as long as it's getting okayed by the big guys, right? So
they told everybody to leave me alone.
Let him do his thing.
He's got good ideas, don't worry about it.
I do have to ask, how long did it take you to learn the riff for the X-Men intro on the guitar? I'm totally joking, by the way.
See, I don't even know.
It's like you hear that intro automatically, you're just like...
Yeah, you become stronger.
You're ready to
Yeah,
go.
I mean that 8-bit was one of the first intro songs we used. We found an 8-bit version of that X-Men intro, and that was one of the first things we used when we were just starting out with our Xbox headset.
Oh yeah, that was bad.
I played flute, not guitar.
How did you feel about X-Men the animated series? I felt that was a powerful cartoon.
Amazing.
It was fun. It was a real blast to work on.
It was so, for its time, I felt like it was so mature. Like, you would see what's kind of going on now in the real life world. You were seeing it when you were a child. And, like these sentinels would just come and just, wow! They were no joke. And they were just, the first like couple episodes, you see a character, just, Jubilee, Juvenile, Morph.
Back when Morph was alive.
So I also do have a bone to pick with you. Are you the reason that Rogue was thicker than a bowl of oatmeal? Because Rogue's body type was like, this girl had hips like no girl that is alive right now. Rogue was the epitome of gorgeous early 90s cartoon.
It's quite formative on a young age.
I have to it still is a lasting effect, okay?
Character design was not done by the storyboard guys.
Okay, I'm just asking.
I think that might have been Russ Heath, although I'm suspecting that Will Mineo probably had a lot to do with it because he could draw some mean, really cool girls.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and Keith, one of the things
Still does too.
we've talked to you about a bunch of kind of the work you've done. What got you started in drawing? Like, we haven't talked about like the Keith. This is how I knew I was going to be an artist and go on to draw great cartoons and amazing things. Like, what got you started? Just doodling under a tree someday?
I kind of I was doing it like around 4 or so, and I kind of wanted to do it, be a cartoonist, and it never went away. I just stayed with it.
And are you kind of self-taught? Did you go to school for this? Did you take cartooning classes or drawing classes?
Self-taught, studying the comics, and when I was a kid, the Sunday comics were like full page. Hal Foster, Prince Valiant, and all this kind of stuff. And so even the Sunday papers were great. And comic books and cartoons. And it was inspiring, and I drew all the time. And, I took I was an apprentice at Filmation to learn storyboarding. So that was about the only schooling I had.
And is there any cartoons growing up? I mean, the Sunday morning comics, I grew up reading a lot of those too. Any particular comic that you look to that has influenced your style and your drive? Like, I mean, the Heathcliffs, the Family Circuses, Prince Valiant, any Garfield, any of those kind of long-standing?
Those came after, but yeah, Walt Disney's movies.
Like the Fantasias and Snow Whites.
Yeah.
Bambi's, the early kind of run of Disney stuff.
Yeah, and I used to, before, when I was young, like Disney comics and the Beagle Boys and, Karl Barks and had a big influence. And then Marvel Comics came out in the 60s, so, I was still a kid then, and, so.
Have you tried stepping out of your, because I feel like you have a specific art style. Like, I feel like it's when I look at your art, I'm like, oh, I know that that's your art. Have you ever tried stepping out into like anime as far as the way like the manga style of storyboarding?
Well, actually in the 80s, a big influence on a lot of us was like Miyazaki or Giant Gorg. Anybody know about Giant Gorg? If you don't, look him up. It's a giant robot and a kid, and gorgeous storytelling. And no, we were very influenced during the early Joes and Transformers and all that.
I have a feeling that there was something there.
Yeah, but I mean, I've drawn upon Hitchcock. I mean, I remember Transformers where I did that opening shot in North by North, or that shot in North by Northwest, where what's his name? I can't remember the actor's name right now, but he dives under camera and this plane flies overhead, and I'm like, I think I did that with Starscream or somebody.
Makes sense.
You saw it and you recognized. You're like, wait a minute.
No, I saw it on film and I said, oh, that'd make a great shot here, you know.
And you just draw it in.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't want to keep you from your booth too long. Do you need to get back?
Yeah, I gotta get.
Okay.
I gotta get.
Well, thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, everyone online
Keith.
watching. We appreciate you as always, and we'll see you. You're coming to RedCon, right?
I'm coming to RedCon. Hasn't been announced yet, has it?
Yes.
I'm not on the.
Mr. Rencon.
Well, this is the unofficial announcement.
Keith Tucker will be at RedCon September 15th, 16th, guys. Tickets are now available.
At the hotel in Urban.
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you.
What he said.
What he said.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Keith.
Okay, people. Bye-bye.
See, and since we're doing Facebook Live, we just kind of wander in and out. Thank you very much, Keith. But Emilio, since we got you, do you want to talk toys or do you want to talk RedCon?
We can talk a little bit about everything.
Talk about video games. We can talk about anything.
Toys.
What?
I mean, just look at all this room.
And then some.
Right. And then some. Look at this room, man.
Yeah, I mean,
This room is amazing.
being in this room yesterday for the first thing, I was sitting around. Justin was talking about art, and it was great. But then I kept looking around. I'm like, I had that one. I had that one.
Do you think they would notice if I took that Batman up top? just asking for a friend.
I mean,
I'm just throwing it out there.
Battle
Those when you
Cat.
guys are live, what you don't see is maybe we should get the camera and move it around. But they have really nice displays on the side, and there's a bunch of
G.I. Joe,
G.I.
He-Man,
Joes,
Transformers.
This room's more expensive than anything I own.
Yeah,
combined.
there's-
I think it's like combined with Andrew stuff too. Like there's.
It's all in package. The only thing I really don't see is Star Wars figures.
That's a little
Like
upsetting.
if they had some Star Wars up in here, because I know growing up, I mean Emilio, since this is basically a trip down our childhood,
Back in the 1940s.
back when dinosaurs ruled the earth. What toy do you remember playing with and just loving? Like I remember the Star Wars figures before my brother discovered candles and melting them down, and my dog developed a taste for them. We had a ton of Star Wars figures. 2 Darth Vader cases full of Star Wars figures.
So there's the Star Wars kids, and then there's the G.I. Joe kids, and then there's the Transformer kids. I unfortunately was a G.I. Joe kid. You can see my hat.
I'm sorry.
I didn't have any Star Wars.
See, the Star Wars was my brother's. I was much more
See,
the G.I. Joe.
Steve, if Steve was here, he loves Star Wars. He'll sit here and talk to you about Star Wars all day.
I actually do remember there is a Star Wars something over there because you see the G.I. Joe doll up there. It's about a
The 12-inch?
12-inch figurine. So my brother, this guy over there, we used to collect these Star Wars figurines, which now go for a couple $100 a pop.
Yeah.
And I remember, we had every Star Wars toy.
If you had them in box.
But we also figured out what fireworks were and duct tape.
Yeah.
So looking
Sid
back, I'm
from
like
Toy
that.
Story.
Yeah, seriously, we were that kid where we were melting them down, watching to see how high we can get a stormtrooper up next to a bottle
Well,
rocket.
we had the Hoth playsets and the AT-AT and the Ewok Tree Village, and I remember those. And then I see them now walking around these cons in package, and they're like, "Oh, $300." I'm like, "Oh, if we weren't kids that love playing with stuff, we'd be fine."
We would have dollars up
You know,
there.
I was just talking to Mark Palomo. He's out there. He created the G.I. Joe book with the whole guide. And we were just talking about how 3 years ago, you know, things that are now on sale for like $300, it was $50, $20. And now, the crazy part, it's not the Gen X that's creating this demand. It's all these millennials that
Sorry,
never...
I got a little excited there. We did something good, guys. We did something good. We got one thing.
that one thing.
Well, I mean,
But it's all these millennials that are keeping and then didn't have it. Like they didn't grow up with G.I. Joe, television. They didn't grow up with commercials or anything like that. But to see the passion that these people have, it's amazing how Mark can re-release a 3rd edition G.I. Joe book and still sell out.
It's sell out. And G.I. Joe hasn't been on the air in so damn long. The only you can watch them on YouTube. I know I got the G.I. Joe movie, and one of my favorite features on the G.I. Joe movie was having the public service announcements. You can watch all the PSAs in a row. Don't play with fire. Don't touch a hot stove. Don't jump over the torn down electric wires on your bike, kid.
I have a new idea for the comic dads, including you here. We're gonna start doing PSA announcements.
So you're the one about to do something. No, Egypt, not this.
Did you guys ever see In Living Color? I know this is going a little, actually stretching past me. In Living Color, there was Jim Carrey's character, Fire
Marshal Bill.
We can do something like this where I don't mind being the guy. Like, the first thing you guys need to know is don't do this, and then I go and do something.
You just want to back it up, Terry.
Back up, Terry. That's for you, Mike. I don't know if you're even watching. He probably isn't. He's not a nerd.
You just want to do all that stuff. But I mean, Egypt? What if you could go back and take one of the toys you played with? I mean, granted, you're a retro game collector anyway, and toy collector, so you can find all this stuff anyway. But that one toy,
one thing, I got it, nailed it.
That you played with,
I had
you could bring
the
back.
whole thing, the attachments and everything. It was the entire Ninja Turtles. I'm pretty sure it was like 1993, 94. The entire base of the Ninja Turtles.
Oh, the sewer?
The sewer base, and it was like 19 pieces. And Johnny and I would try to connect it, and I could never get it right, and then I would end up just smashing it all down. But if I kept that pristine, I think that would be the coolest toy that I ever had looking back. Because, I mean, I used to bring stormtroopers down there. Why were stormtroopers in the...
Just because, yeah.
Because I could, whatever.
Because the Empire was trying to fight rebels of all kinds, yeah.
I used to do the same thing too. I had this Chuck Norris little 6-inch figure and had nothing to do with the Ninja Turtles, but you know what? It was Chuck Norris.
Who won? Did the Turtles win or Chuck Norris? I mean, there's a joke in here, right?
I was waiting for a punchline.
Chuck Norris.
Okay, since nobody's gonna, nobody else is gonna take this, I'm doing it.
No, I got the toy.
Okay.
But Emilio, what's you got your toy, or do I need to tell you mine?
You go ahead.
Okay, so you'll love this. G.I. Joe. I remember this one Christmas, my two grandmothers lived a block and a half from each other in Indiana. So when we'd go for Christmas, we'd get 2 Christmases both right there, we'd get my mom's side and my dad's side. Well, one year, we're over in Indiana at my dad's mom, my grandma Broman. I got the Mobile Command Center. 3 levels of G.I. Joe moving base.
Pure awesomeness.
And that is probably the single most expensive gift I've ever gotten growing up. And it was...
I didn't get the Lincoln Logs. I got the Mobile Command Center. I got the Lincoln Logs. So
yeah,
that was my base.
Oh, that's
so
pretty.
Yeah, I mean,
I built my own base off Lincoln Logs.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine that year got the Terror Drone, and that set was huge too. So we had the Mobile Command Center come drive through the Terror Drone. We might have broken the fire back that came with the Terror Drone, but mistakes were made. I mean, you were talking about attaching firecrackers and things to things to make them blow up. Sometimes you just throw things because you wanted to see it fly. I mean, that Mambo we had, that 2-bladed helicopter didn't last too long either because mistakes were made. Turns out, 6 to 12-year-olds are destructive.
Figure that.
I don't know about that. Troy, what do you think? Are 6 to 12-year-olds destructive? You ever break anything?
He's like, I'm on camera. I'm not admitting to anything.
The 8-year-old definitely has broken a thing or 3.
I would say my one toy, besides G.I. Joe, I've always been kind of a wrestling fan. So I don't know if you remember they had these...
School or new school? Because that's
old
like
school.
NW... Oh, never mind. We already talked about
which
this.
old school? Like 80s WWF?
Like, yeah, 80s, Barber Beefcake,
Bruce the Barber Beefcake, Coco Beware,
That's also my
Demolition,
nickname for my
Jimmy
wife.
Feist,
Don't tell her I said that.
Legion of Doom.
So I was born in California, and you know, in California they have these alleys where they knock off places, right? So I would love going there because back in the day they would have those KO wrestling rings that WWF didn't have any wrestling rings at that time. So I was excited to have these like finger wrestlers that you would put your thumb in. And you could like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
forgot about those.
yeah, so you could like bend them and make them do DDTs and stuff because the other ones were so
Why
stiff.
not?
So if I can go back, it would be that, and then one other thing. It's now this is just crazy because if I can remember what it is or what it's called, I would buy it right now. But it's like a weird like track, kind of like a roller coaster track, right?
Okay.
And all it does, it goes, and it has penguins, and it goes. And it goes.
I remember that guy. Yeah.
And it does it over and over and over.
It's called.
That's when you're a
Yeah,
kid, that was
there's
so
there's no
fascinating.
real point
I
to it.
got nothing on this. I'm sorry. I wish I was helpful.
I like it's in my mind. So if there's ever like a machine that you can plug in and kind of read it on.
Play that, Mary Beck.
Not to cut you short, though, we do have a special guest walking in right now.
Look at
If you'd
that.
like to come join us,
This is all you.
David Williams.
David Williams, everybody.
Want to wrap around and come talk with us?
Come, have a mic. Join us. We're on Facebook Live on our podcast.
Unfortunately, we don't have beer with us. I know this is very deceptive.
Normally we would, but you know, alcohol enforcement and all that, they wouldn't let us get too far. But David Williams, artist extraordinaire.
Check 1, 2.
Oh yeah, we're hot. So,
See, this is how we start off every podcast.
well, Egypt's been wanting to beatbox.
I mean, I'm not.
Thank you, Emilio.
All right, man.
So, David, thank you for joining us first off.
Appreciate it.
What do you think of this lovely Washington Toy and Geek Fest? How's it compared to other shows you go to, and are you having fun?
I really don't compare shows, but they all seem to be unique because of the environment, and the people are really nice. That's what I always hope to expect, and they're all unique, very cool, courteous. And, I love being here for them. And want to look through my portfolio and learn more about comics and buy product. It's all good.
That's awesome. So us as the comic dads, we obviously are giant collectors of comics. We're infatuated with the art, the writing, the style.
Sometimes too much.
Sometimes too much. For people who don't know what you do or aren't familiar with it, do you want to tell some people where we can find some of your art, or do you have a website, a Facebook? Where can we find your stuff that we want from you?
I'm kind of all over the place, but mainly I was best known for a nickname a friend gave me, Brohawk, because I used to rock a mohawk, so I was the bro with the mo. So they call me Brohawk, and if you just Google David Williams Brohawk, you would just go and Google images and you see nothing but my artwork all over the place.
We might use that for a promo picture for this podcast, actually.
Sure, but I don't rock it anymore. I'm the artist formerly known as Brohawk. But
It worked for Prince.
yeah. But my art is on DeviantArt under Brohawk, and I have a Instagram that's DWAMS Art, DWAMS Art, and you can go check me out there. But my career spans, years.
You've been doing this a while. This is not anything new to you.
Yeah. So I've been doing comic books since I was 16.
That's crazy.
So
What are some of the ones that you're best known for, you think, that people would be like, oh, yeah, that's you? Like, could put it together,
I
essentially.
can never say what a fan, mostly because it's all over the place. You know what I mean? Because I work for Marvel, DC, Image, and various other, companies and stuff like that. So I'm like the floater guy that floats around and does all this kind of stuff. And I worked in animation, for a while. And I worked on the Batman and Superman cartoon back in the 90s.
One of my favorites, by the way.
With
Batman the Animated Series.
and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And so I was a character designer on that, and I moved over to Sony Animation and worked on the Ghostbusters cartoon for a little while.
Nice.
went into consumer products for the larger portion of my career. And consumer products is basically like when you go to Walmart or Walgreens or whatever wall, you would see some character art on, say, Crest toothpaste, or some kind of artwork on cereal boxes, or stuff you just take for granted. You go, oh, someone must have drawn that. It was probably someone in consumer products, and that's where I work. And so we're required to draw like a whole bunch of different styles. And so, I would do stuff for Scooby-Doo, or for Iron Giant, or for Osmosis Jones. So I was kind of, again, all over the map.
Seriously, all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
And with character development, particularly with Batman the Animated Series, I mean, that was the start of Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And I mean, a lot of the visions of those characters, that Batman Rogues Gallery we get from to this day comes from that show. I mean, is there any character you can look at now and be like, yeah, that one was mine. I've got 90% of the work I did on that one.
Especially Batman. This is where you're knocking on my interest right now. Like, tell me more.
I did well, this is the way it works. Like, well, you would have a main character artist that you're doing the style from, and that was Bruce Timm. So Bruce Timm would do the main characters, like your Batmans, Harley Quinns, and stuff, and say, okay, I'll take care of this, but you guys do all the incidental characters and all the peripheral characters around them. So I would do a lot of incidental characters, but I would also do characters that he wouldn't necessarily want to do. Like there was a Superman episode when we were working on Superman where I would do a lot of the New Gods characters. So
that's awesome.
I was doing like High Father and Granny Goodness, the Parademons and all that kind of stuff.
Design for Granny Goodness?
Yeah, and I'll tell you another story about that. When I did the design for that, I was intentionally trying to make it look like Ed Asner, the old actor from Mary Tyler Moore, and I suggested to Bruce, hey man, we should actually get Ed Asner to do the voice, and then they did because they liked the drawing so much. And then, a year later, I met Ed Asner on the Warner Brothers Live, because I had moved from working in animation to work in consumer products, and they were across the street from the movie line. And so when I was having lunch on the movie line, Ed Asner was right there, and I let him know that I was the guy who got him that job.
Did you get 10%?
Yeah,
finder's fee?
I wish.
Did he buy you lunch? Anything?
No, but he was a really, really sweet man. He really liked the character and the design, and he said that was a fun job.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Does anybody, while we're on the topic of any of this Batman, Superman stuff, do any of you guys have questions about this? No?
So, when you were going through, you were setting up all these characters. How did you know when you were done?
That's a good question.
When that always comes down to the art director. He'll let you know when you're done. Because there's always like, I don't like this, revise this, tweak this, and then they go, okay, now you can go to final ink. Well, I don't like the way you ink that, go change this, fix this, tweak this, and then it's done, and then they put a stamp on it, and then it's officially done. So it goes through a process.
I mean, how start to finish, like a 30-minute with commercials episode of Superman or Batman or whichever cartoon.
Yeah.
How long did it take you and the team of artists to get an episode done? And how big is the team?
Back then the teams were bigger, but right now they've condensed everything because everything is trying to make everything cost effective. Mm-hmm. But back in the day of Superman and Batman animated, the teams were a lot bigger, so there was probably about 4 or 5 different character artists on any given show, and there were 4 or 5 different background artists, and 3 or 4 prop makers, the guys who do the props that are in the background, or props that characters would have to use, like guns, or whatever is a loose prop.
Yeah.
And so that would take, all of that a script and all that kind of stuff, for you to actually see it on the screen, it took about like 4 months.
For one episode?
One episode. So that you don't realize how far back we're actually working just to, keep them going and stuff like that. So that's how it works.
That's insane. That's a lot of time.
Is it? Yeah, the 3. These are the 3. We grabbed that one. It's one of these 3. Yeah, it's this one right here. No, we put one up. We put a ball on. It's one of yours. We're safe.
We got it.
Thanks for the interruption.
See, this is why we do Facebook Live. Podcast never.
This is why we do it live.
You good. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. And your name is?
You're perfect. No. See, and that's one of the fun things.
Facebook Live is
This is the best part.
Don't mess around with David around. He's our bodyguard.
So 4 or 5 in like 4 or 5 different departments, and you're talking 4 months.
Well, this is all in one department, so you're working often on more
Episodes.
than just that one.
Okay.
So I'm doing designs for multiple shows, but it still takes that long for each one to
Get that approved,
Yeah,
move
exactly.
forward. And I mean, do you find, since you've done the broad spectrum of just drawing everything for everything, do you find one style or one avenue that you like more? Like, do you like cover art or the actual comic books or the animation or the consumable products?
Consumer products is not, that pays better than all of them.
It's kind of surprising, to be honest.
Well, if you understood what consumer products is, this is the thing that everybody buys. You know what I mean?
Very true. It's not just
You know?
comic people
It's
or
not
these
just
nerds
comic
coming to
people.
look for Batman,
Yeah.
Superman,
Exactly.
whatever.
It's I'm buying that tube of Crest,
Yeah,
and it
this
just
goes-
happens to have the.
Yeah, and it goes around the world and stuff like that, just instantly. You know what I mean? And so that pays a lot better. Comic books don't pay as much as animation, but comic books is the freer form of all of those genres, but all of those genres look for talent who are like comic book artists who can be a little bit more malleable with their style. And always suggested to other comic book artists, you guys should put comic books aside for a while and go jump into animation. Just to learn a different style and to be able to flex your muscles and to be able to go into different directions.
But animation's a little bit more difficult, though, isn't it? I would say comparing to just doing like a normal, like we just got done talking with Keith Tucker, and he was kind of talking to us about storyboards and how those work out. Is it more difficult doing the art for an animation via a comic book, or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's just different. It's flexing a different muscle. It's just like, if you want to use the analogy of muscles and stuff like that, if you're just constantly working out your right arm and you're not working out your left one and stuff like that, it's kind of uneven.
Yeah.
And so animation is just working out a different muscle, you know what I mean? And all art to me anyway is muscle memory, you know what I mean? Because it's just like when you go to school, kindergarten, wherever you're learning how to write the alphabet, the teacher tells you to write the alphabet exactly the way you see it, right? And then after a certain point, they take that away and you know how to do it without looking at it, and it can look exactly like that. But later, you start to get a sense of how to do the A your way, but it still looks like an A, right?
Yeah.
So it's unique to you, so now you have a style. That's all art is, for the most part.
It's a fantastic analogy, by the way. It took me a minute. I was like, whoa.
And also, that doesn't account for creativity. Creativity is, something that comes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Hearts
on top of your eyes to keep with your alphabet analogy.
Yeah, so that's a whole other stuff. So that's a different, encounter.
Yeah, I mean, do you need to get back here real soon? We don't want to keep you too long. We appreciate all your time.
I just have one more
You're
question.
kicking
What's
me
your
out, I'm out.
favorite? What's your absolute favorite? Because I noticed your Batman. Your Batman art, obviously, like, I know your Batman art. Like, it's funny walking by your booth and being like, wait, that was you?
Yeah.
Like, trust me, my favorite character, one of the characters I look up to the most, and the fact is, you're behind this character. What is your favorite character, either to illustrate or
Relate to.
even?
Well, Batman is my ultimate favorite, but I'd have to actually, it's the trifecta of all superheroes for me is Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. Everything else is derivative of those characters, at least for me.
Yeah.
And so, but they all ultimately are just guys in tights and muscles. So I can draw any character, but the characters that I gravitate to and that I like are Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. So
Those are the trifecta, honestly. I lean DC, but I'll pull Spider-Man into my DC group. I do appreciate that.
I'm the Marvel half, so I get everything going. I mean, I've always been a fan of Cap and Doctor Strange. Long Shot is the one I always throw out. People are like, who the hell still likes Long Shot?
he's very ambiguous.
Yeah.
Also, since we're on this topic of Spider-Man, how do you feel about the new Spider-Man, Tom Holland?
He's pretty good. I didn't necessarily like the overall. It wasn't Spider-Man enough because what I know Spider-Man to be isn't just merely the costume and the aesthetics. It's the person and the things that he has to go through. And they stripped away all of that. He's not fighting to keep Aunt May's home with having a job and dealing with school and
getting pictures, fighting Eddie Brock for pictures.
He's not doing any of that stuff, and he actually wasn't like super smart like he should be.
Yeah.
Because he had a sidekick that was doing all the smart stuff for him. I'm like, okay, where's Peter Parker at? You know what I mean? Because I don't recognize this as Peter Parker, but he was a good actor. He's fine. He's great, and I'm hoping they develop more of what I'm an old head, so I'm reading old John Romita Sr. comics and stuff. That's the Peter Parker I know. And Steve Ditko, Spider-Man. So he's good, and he has all the trappings of, like, if you didn't know he was going to be Spider-Man, you go, oh,
you did all right,
yeah. But to me, as a whole, they didn't bring it. To me, they brought like a video game version of Spider-Man.
That makes sense.
And they literally just vomited every idea that was in the video games and threw it into a suit. And I'm like, what does Spider-Man, what does Peter do? You know what I mean?
I never realized that you actually nailed something. So the Aunt May part, I just realized they turned turned Aunt May into a Bellevue house mom. And I was like, wait, how come Aunt May has all this money now?
Yeah, she was always hired. Peter always had to pick her up somewhere. There was a lot of juggling, taking care of Aunt May, taking care of his own life.
It is the new age though, so life insurance maybe?
Well, the whole thing was about
the benzene.
Spider-Man, even though he's a boy, it was about him becoming the man of the house and being a man outside of even school. He was taking care of responsibilities, like a hustling man. Like, I have to do good in school. I have to help Aunt May. I have to be good for my girlfriend. He didn't have none of that in this movie. And I'm like, who is this guy?
You absolutely just crushed this debate. I have nothing to even say. I'm like, dude, I'm not even stepping into
We've
this.
had this debate a lot, and I really like that first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire as Peter Parker.
Yeah.
I don't think he captured Spider-Man as well as, say, Andrew Garfield or
Oh,
Tom
no,
Holland.
Andrew was great.
But like Garfield, I thought was the better Spider-Man in the suit.
Yeah.
And then I thought Tom Holland was a good mix of both of them.
Sure.
And he's starting to get there. I mean, making him on the smart team.
They did a terrible disservice to, just like when Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield in his movie, they jacked up great power comes great responsibility. They reworded it in some weird way they took that thing out of this. This is Marvel's first time doing Spider-Man. This is Marvel's Spider-Man. And then they said, "Oh, we don't care about
The backstory,
or in this history, and we're not going to nail it down for you, so definitively." They said, "Man, we don't need that."
In their defense, though,
what?
who died more times in film? Batman's parents or Uncle Ben?
Or Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
Leave Gwen alone. Leave Gwen alone.
Well, they definitely keep killing the Waynes off one. More than a little bit, but, it's necessary.
I'm a big fan of like the Spider-Verse in general. Like, I mean, you've got Miles, you've got Peter Porker, the Incredible Spider-Ham, you got Spider-Gwen, Silk. Is there a particular member of the Spider-Verse besides the traditional Peter as Spider that you like?
No.
No, it's all Peter. Okay, no worries.
I'm one of those guys that find those derivative characters, it makes them weak in comparison to the guy that they're emulating or they're siphoning off of. They're getting, it's just say like if they did a Steel movie and they started playing John Williams music, you'd be like, what? It's just like, why would you do that?
This is the wrong universe.
You're not Superman. You don't warrant that music. You know what I mean? Do not do that. So
you gotta do your own theme song, bro.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the Miles Morales character. I mean, there's other insects that you guys could have used to give us a new character. There's other things besides spiders that are cool.
They're like, we're gonna use Spider-Man. Change his race.
But it's just like, yeah, exactly. It's just like, why couldn't he, say, I'll use this for a moment, but I have to be my own man, and I'm going to be this thing over here. It's almost like how Dick Grayson says, okay, I don't want to be under your shadow of being Robin. So now I'm going to be my own man and be nice. But it's still playing in the arena of Batman and being dark and all that kind of stuff, but he's still his own guy over here. He even had to leave Gotham City.
He's like, I'm going over to Bloodhaven.
Yeah.
Deuces.
That to me was cool.
Yeah.
Keep the cape, Bruce.
Well, I think we are nearing out of time.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Definitely
We love
appreciate
you.
it.
You want to tell everybody one more time where they can find you, your art,
And where you'll be at next
online,
maybe.
and maybe next con or next festival you're going to be at.
I don't do very many cons, and I don't know what actually is going to be, but you can find me online on DWAM's Art and Instagram, and also DeviantArt under Brohawk. And there you go.
Thank you very much for all your time.
Very welcome.
And we're going to be signing off because we got to hand the room off at 2 here to some toys, guys. I think that's some in the back, right?
I think so.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll find out.
But,
I would
yeah.
be surprised if it wasn't Kevin Hurd, actually, our favorite Halo collector. The
Maybe.
gentleman with the largest Halo collection in the world.
I think, yeah.
Wow.
you can do it, too.
It's insane. Like, I brought him a bunch of toys that we got gifted to us from our buddy from Microsoft. Thank you very much. I brought him like a ton of toys that I was like, are these worth anything? He's like,
That's
garbage,
what-
garbage, garbage.
Couple $100. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, all right.
Awesome. Thanks for
But yes, thank you very much. We loved it.
Show.
And it's on Facebook Live if you feel like sharing us at all under the Comic Dads.
I will do that.
And yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy Toy Geek Fest. You got 3 more hours. Come down if you're watching.